that it can be a source of enhancing and promoting our identity towards a collective spirit of unity so that we can take us through to prosperity to create and discuss just and inclusive climate action this afternoon. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you so much, Sele, for that invocation. And I hope everyone is having and feeling the power, because our topic is really on building and bringing together our power. So can I hear a ho when I say hey? And can I hear a hey when I say a ho? Hey? Ho. Hey? Ho. Ho. Hey. Ho. Hey. Yeah. Let's keep the power up until the end of our discussion. So this discussion is, again, power to the people, harnessing the mobilizing collective action to enhance the capacity of environment and climate defenders most at risk. And basically, this will be a 1 full hour of storytelling, stories from the grassroots, from the communities of our expert speakers here. So basically, the urgency of our problem at hand, climate crisis that we are facing, demands an intersectional and cross-constituency and multi-sectoral coordination to bring our minds and hands together. It really needs all our help, all our minds and all our hands. But the most vulnerable and the most affected communities and peoples, the marginalized, the poorest, a segment of society, usually the small farmers, the small food producers, informal workers and wage earners, indigenous peoples communities mostly, and the urban poor and the youth remain insufficiently exposed and engaged in climate actions. Moreover, they often come at the receiving end of irreparable climate disasters. If not, they are impacted by climate policies and programs that may do more harm and violate their rights in the name of just transition, the name of adaptation and mitigation without them being part of it. In addition, the compounding political and peace instability that we are facing right now is exacerbating the problems that we already have. The attacks against environmental human rights defenders, land and human rights defenders, and they find themselves facing increasing repression, rights violations, or in the middle of war and conflict. So we are here today to know what are the primary risks, what are their messages, and what are the cross-cutting message that we can build on together. So I will not make this any more longer as it is already. Let's hear from our first storyteller. We have here Gertrude Kenyagi from the People's Coalition of Food Sovereignty, and she's based in Uganda. Gertrude.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, and I welcome you all. Thank you for honoring our invitation to this very, very pivotal and important discussion. So the major threats to our food systems as Africans, as women, as everyone in the world really, because if we are threatened, they are threatened. There are three major threats to our food systems. One is corporate capture of our food systems and our global policy spaces. Number one, the corporations who are for profit are driving a profit agenda, and they are attempting to push hybrid seeds and agricultural chemicals to take over our food systems, which are not protected by policy. What do I mean? There are lots of policies that purport to protect our food systems, but then policy usually does not translate to practice. Now that leaves a gap for corporations to push their agenda for profit and push the seeds that will replace our indigenous seeds. Number two, the corporations are capturing our global policy spaces. For instance, in the global stocktake at this very COP28, there is hardly mention of any agriculture or food systems in the outcome document. I'm alarmed to learn that there is no mention of food systems. Second threat is climate change. in some parts of my country and in many other parts, especially in the East African region, there has even been 100% crop failure because of extremes in weather conditions. Either it's the violent rains or it's the prolonged droughts that have caused extremes and the instability in production. If there are disasters resulting from those extreme conditions of weather, people are herded into indigenous people's camps, internally displaced people's camps, and they cannot produce. So 100% crop failure, or sometimes we end up without food because our production was disrupted. The third is observance of human rights. Excuse me. For instance, the right of women to own land. There's a lot of very good stuff on policy papers, in laws, about gender equality. But when you get to practice, only 7% women own land, the land that they cultivate. The second is reduction, recognition, and redistribution of their care workload. Women are disproportionately bearing disproportionate care workload, and that makes it impossible for them to produce food as they should. And then there's the right to food sovereignty. The right to define our own food systems and agricultural systems still is determined by the powerful. So the climate message that I have is meaningful participation for food producers in climate negotiations. We don't want tokenism. We want our contributions, which are lived experiences, to inform the discussions of climate change. We have the evidence that we have lived as experiences, which we are able to contribute. We don't want the people from air-conditioned offices and swinging chairs, armchair information, who have never experienced anything to do with food production, to be the ones making decisions regarding what to put in policies that will govern our food systems. And then the cross-cutting message I'd like to deliver is system change, not climate change. The entire system needs to be overhauled. Institution rules must change. Resources must be redistributed. The underlying incentive structure must change. The old ones were not working, so we need new ones. And lastly, for effective collaboration, we need to build strong movements as farmers, as food producers, as smallholder farmers and food producers. We must build strong movements that are cross-border, that are cross-continent, that span because there are smallholder farmers on every continent. So we need to build very strong movements to talk back to speak to power, to speak back to power. We need to shift the power. Thank you very much.
Hello. Thank you so much, Gertrude. It makes me realize I've read somewhere that our food producers have been the one most hungry. Not only hungry of food, but hungry of change, maybe. Thank you so much for that, Gertrude. And later on, we would like to hear some of questions. And we will be moving on to our next storyteller. And I will be needing the help of our friend Eva here. We have here our indigenous youth, all the way from Colombia. We have Emilker Gabriel Cuatin Costa from Colombia, and here to share on the stories, on the threats, on the messages, and how we can really harness building our capacity and building our movement together. Gabriel?
Muy buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Gabriel Cuatín Cuesta. Soy del pueblo Pasto. Les hablaré en español, Spanish. Hay varias situaciones de las que queremos contarles, pues desde Latinoamérica, que las compartimos varios pueblos. Y tienen que ver en relación con la deforestación de páramos, que es digamos una discusión que no se ha tenido mucho en cuenta en las negociaciones dentro de la COP. Digamos, la mayor parte de las discusiones que se están dando refieren a la Amazonía. Entonces es fundamental que podamos traer esas problemáticas porque gran parte del territorio que obedece al páramo, donde nace el agua que alimenta los ríos que llegan a la Amazonía, pues gran parte está siendo deforestada, está siendo afectada por los monocultivos y también afectada por los incendios. Entonces esa es una problemática también que necesitamos plantearla acá en estos espacios y varios jóvenes pues estamos trabajando ese tema. Traducción. Micrófono.
No?
Ya.
Thank you. Yeah, it's all good.
It's okay.
Thanks so much.
Working now?
Yeah. So there's the example spoken about is that there's the situation that's shared by a lot of communities in the Latin American Caribbean region, especially when it comes to deforestation. Deforestation is a topic that's still not mainstream at COPs, especially negotiations rooms, and especially deforestation in the Paramo region. Often the focus is on the Amazonic region, but when it comes to the Paramo, there's essentially sort of the forests and the rivers that lead to the Amazon are through that. So it's essentially a place that often is left out of the negotiations and really sort of highlighting this issue of deforestation that's really left out of.
Es así que es fundamental que las discusiones que se den alrededor del cambio climático tengan un carácter intergeneracional, y ese carácter intergeneracional va a permitir la continuidad de la lucha que han venido dando nuestros pueblos indígenas. Se dice que alrededor del 80% de la biodiversidad del planeta está custodiada por los pueblos indígenas, y que estos están encargados pues de su protección, bajo la concepción biocéntrica de que no somos una especie separada del territorio, sino que hacemos parte del territorio. Y es así que es fundamental traer esos mensajes de cómo los pueblos indígenas podemos aportar a hacer frente a la crisis, a la triple crisis planetaria que estamos enfrentando, porque también los pueblos indígenas han sido afectados. El cambio climático ha producido migración, de que nuestros pueblos se desplacen de un territorio a otro, y lo que hace eso es arrancar su cultura de las personas o de nuestros compañeros, compañeras que son indígenas. Entonces hay un primer mensaje que es las discusiones que se den en estos espacios deben ser en clave intergeneracional, y por tanto es la importancia de la participación de las juventudes indígenas en estos escenarios.
So there's a need to really sort of highlight the role of indigenous peoples and local communities in these spaces and these conversations, especially indigenous youth. But looking at intergeneration, I think, it was pointed out that, of course, 80% of biodiversity is protected by indigenous peoples and local communities. And looking at biocentric conservation, where, the earth and the sort of human being are not separated, but are sort of part of this intricate, system, and really highlighting in these spaces the role that Indigenous peoples have to contribute to fight this sort of triple planet crisis. And Indigenous peoples are very vulnerable as well to climate change. They forced displacement, migration. They face as well loss of culture and heritage. So really, again, highlighting the importance of this sort of intergenerational integration of conversations, and then the role that youth play into this and in preserving sort of these cultures and all these knowledge and learnings.
El mensaje transversal desde los pueblos indígenas es un llamado a proteger el territorio, a proteger la biodiversidad, pero también, más allá de eso, debe hablarse también de la forma en que se hace el financiamiento hacia los pueblos indígenas para fortalecer el cuidado del territorio. Y eso tiene que ver con el financiamiento directo. Hacer un financiamiento directo permitirá el fortalecimiento de las capacidades institucionales de los pueblos indígenas. Y a la vez, al fortalecer las capacidades institucionales propias de los pueblos indígenas, va a permitir fortalecer una de las prácticas ancestrales que han tenido nuestros pueblos indígenas, que es el trabajo en colectivo, o sea, pensarse en comunidad. Una de las problemáticas que enfrentamos actualmente es que pensamos de manera individual, y eso nos lleva a hablar pues ya de las problemáticas incluso de la extinción humana. Y al hablar de extinción humana, pues eso nos trae muchas preocupaciones y tenemos que devolvernos a pensar en colectivo. Y eso es lo que el llamado, digamos, que se hace desde los pueblos indígenas, que sigamos pensando en colectivo, porque la lucha frente al cambio climático refiere a un trabajo de todos, interinstitucional, intercultural, comprender a las culturas, escucharlas y también compartir los sistemas de conocimiento de nuestros pueblos indígenas.
A point that was raised was the need to direct finance to Indigenous peoples to safeguard and protect their environment and biodiversity, but then as well finance for capacity building for Indigenous peoples and also capacity building at the institutional level. It was also pointed out as well the need to move away from this individualistic approach to a collective approach that fosters collective action and collective thinking and really engages all communities, and an approach that essentially fosters, action, with sort of collaboration between institutions, cultures, and really sort of moving from this individualistic to collective approach.
Enfrentar el cambio climático refiere a un trabajo de todos y todas. Y se requiere que desde los niños, desde los jóvenes, a nuestros mayores, escucharlos, refiere pues a un trabajo conjunto, como ya lo mencioné, interinstitucional, intercultural, que nos permita de algún modo conectar. Y eso refiere a que fortalezcamos tanto nuestros planes de vida como pueblos indígenas, que son muy diferentes a los planes con la concepción de desarrollo que tienen las instituciones del Estado, pero de alguna manera los planes de vida deben conectar con los planes de desarrollo. Ya es así que se tendría como una mayor incidencia, ¿no?, tanto del trabajo de autodeterminación como pueblos indígenas, y también pues las instituciones del Estado serían más eficaces para poder combatir la triple crisis planetaria. Estas son algunas reflexiones que les hemos traído desde Latinoamérica respecto a las problemáticas que se ven en nuestros países, en nuestras organizaciones. Yo hago parte de una red de jóvenes indígenas de América Latina y el Caribe, y como jóvenes hemos estado trabajando en diferentes proyectos y tenemos algunas experiencias con juventudes indígenas que han venido aportando desde el uso de la tecnología, por ejemplo, el fortalecimiento del cuidado del territorio, el monitoreo del territorio, y también cómo nuestras juventudes indígenas se preocupan por la creación, por ejemplo, de bancos de semilla, cómo se preocupan también por formar a los niños, por reunirse, por organizarse. Entonces ahí es otro mensaje del apoyo hacia las juventudes indígenas para fortalecer sus capacidades. Muchas gracias.
it was highlighting again the need for all of us to fight and to really engage elders and youth and the collective and to really connect on an interinstitutional and intercultural sort of level. It was highlighted as well the need to connect life plans with development plans and really the role of capacity building and empowering indigenous peoples, but then also the efficacy and efficiency of institutions. I think from this intervention it was highlighted so these issues that other indigenous peoples and local communities face in Latin America, but there's also work done by youth, especially there's a youth network that the speaker works with that works on different projects and works on essentially really sort of empowering youth and building their capacities to develop their own technologies, to safeguard and monitor biodiversity, but then also to build their capacities to mobilize other youth and children.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Gabriel Emilker. And I think one of the common theme is on how linking what the community, the youth have been doing, and putting it in action, putting it in the spotlight for the decision makers, for the development agenda in the local communities and the nations, for them to really harness what the community has been doing for a lot of time and to address the threats that they've been also experiencing on a very high rate. So from Kenya to Colombia, we're now going to down to Pacific, and we will have Sele to share with us what are the threats and dangers and risk that our brothers and sisters from the Pacific is facing, and how an intersectional, intergenerational, and interconstituency power and connections can build on what you have been doing already. Sele?
Thank you, Paul. Good afternoon to everyone. I speak to you as a knowledge holder, an elder from the Pacific, one of the socio-cultural region of the International Indigenous Peoples Forum on Climate Change, what we call as the LCIP. I thank you so much for the organizers for allowing me to sit together with these august panelists. I was given a few questions, so I'll try to be articulate, but in voicing out what usually is one, a misconception, two, we drown in our voice and our cries with the South Pacific Blue Ocean. So I speak representing some 17 state countries. All of them are running around now in the last 4 days trying to make out in the different streams of negotiation. But in terms of power, I will be talking about a few principles that guides who we are, and it is my purpose to challenge all of us once we go out that door for us to remember that who we are. What is power? What is people power? Now, for us in the Pacific, as I've said, we always drown in our distant voices. Either we look at it from what we call as the big volcanic islands of the Melanesian Spearhead Group, whether we're talking about Papua New Guinea, Solomons, Fiji, New Caledonia. Mind you, we are all in our respective geopolitical colonials background. And coming to now, the people power is a huge, silent, foundational, should I say, silent power that now when we're discussing climate just transition, climate action that represents our genuine voice, my first point to us this afternoon is a blunt truth. And I want to leave you with this. This is the blunt truth if you want to take back that people power. It is nothing but the sovereignty identity of who we are. We always, in some of these discussion spaces, we normally being aligned to some of the other foreign discussion coming to us. I must upgrade, elevate, advocate, champion, and promote that we are here as a people, First Nations, indigenous people. And that is a challenge right now. So the authenticity and legitimacy of our inherent rights of indigenous people as first stewards and guardians of our environment, our culture, our knowledge systems, our communal value that binds us together. We cannot do this. The people power cannot go along if you continue to shout as an individual communal unit. In Fiji, we have communal. So that is the first one that I would like to advocate to us today. My second question is on Paul, on the major threats. Oh, of course, the Pacific has undergone ecological threats. You name it. Let me give you some example. From highland landscape loss to riverside erosion, coastal erosion, mangrove excess siltation, loss of spawning areas of our fisheries, the increase in eutrophication, increased acidity, we are losing our species, bleaching of coral reefs, the loss of inshore fisheries in our tuna. And there's only one word there that I need to upgrade. It's a survival issue. We have lost everything. I come from a huge region in the Pacific, in Fiji. I don't know, some of you have gone across to LA, Hong Kong, Singapore, and you must have come across a very, very nice looking bottle of water with a hibiscus picture on the side. It's called Fiji water bottle. It is my mother's tribe. I come from that region. And I've spent 2 decades as an environmental defender, trying to defend my people. As they produce this water to sell everywhere around, it's in Dubai, it's in everywhere around now, the Arab states. Our women continue to carry on their back their dirty laundry to go and wash in the nearby creek. Now that doesn't match. This is the story. This is my story, Paul. So into the major threats, that's one, the ecological degradation that we continue to voice. And we are thankful that some of the parties, we had a discussion, great discussion today with the COP28. Hopefully it can go through. The second major threat is, when you talk about just transition, there is this catch, the maladaptation development that always comes through to us in our different socio-cultural region. The third one, please, I'll be blunt. I call it the subtle cloak of nature-based innovation stories that's coming our way. I continue to voice this in the Pacific and in Fiji. And they say, hey, Sele, you are too blunt. I said, it has to be said. I'm so thankful that my dear sister has already mentioned it. The corporate greed that is coming with this cloak, as they talk about renewable energy, they talk about, and they want to submerge miles of our indigenous lands to create another new renewable hydro dam. Where will our forefathers continue for us in our tangible values, our historical sites? So this is going. So these are some of the three. Give me another 2 minutes, Paul. I will go, I'm just trying to track your questions. Now I go to the, I have some flipping, I've just lost my laptop, I've just given up on me today. The cross-cutting message. I have two. One, to empower people through mainstream education. I'm a big champion for education. We have already had intergenerational equity. As people, how can we as elders translate this to our young ones? And I'm not really only talking about our youth, I'm really going right down to our kids. And through our faith system. In the Pacific, there's only two dominant, strong governance system. One is the indigenous system and the other one is the religious system. How can we marry these two? These two are even fighting among themselves. One is demonizing the other. So this is the spirituality and contemporary religious values. We should try to get this. The last one, Paul, in terms of your question, collaboration. I fully align myself with the earlier speakers. One is to reconcile the paradigm of spirituality and contemporary religion, like I've already said. The second one, it is the huge challenge as indigenous people to gain back our power. It is a question of how. In Fiji, we call it talanoa. Sit around the table in circle, and talanoa. Now this is it, mark my words. This is the most important divide. It's between our indigenous people to gain back our power and our telling of the story to our own state parties. That is the biggest divide. The question is, and I hope the floor has a few answers to share with us also today, how we can bridge this. Last one, Paul, effective collaboration. We already talked about cross-border movements, and I'm a great believer of South-South collaboration. I am really pleading in this space, how can we create and share success stories? Do we have a regional, I'm talking about Asia Pacific or global, how can we create this depository so that we can put, and for me in the Pacific to be hearing, hey, there is a youth movement happening in the middle of Kalahari or somewhere in the Arctic, so that I can also, because I cannot go there, it takes me 2 days to reach here. So that is something that I'm pleading. That is my main dominant message with all who I've been meeting for the last 2 weeks. Can we have this sharing message platform so that we can all learn from? Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you so much, Sele. And I think everyone is with you and they were willing to connect with you and start that connection, starting that initiative to connect everyone. And yeah, we will move on to our last storyteller, but not the least, of course. We have Alab Ayroso, our youth environment activist in the Philippines. Yes, Alab.
Yes, hello. Hi, so I'd like to share a story of two young activists from the Philippines. And their story begins in a community. They're two young women, they're around my age, their names are Jed and Janila. They went to a fisher's community, and there they've experienced a great injustice. They were abducted. We have a term in Filipino, it's called desaparecidos. These are victims of enforced disappearance. It's a tactic of military agents to silence people, activists, who are being criticizing the government, criticizing powerful institutions. And the way they do that is that they abduct them, they physically force them into vans, they physically force them into safe houses, and tell them and have this narrative that they are surrenderies, quote unquote. And with these two young women, what they did is that they turned that narrative around. What they did is they told the truth. They said in a press conference that what the truth is, and that they were abducted away from the narrative of the military that is saying that they're surrenderies or that they're rebels. And that truth was backed up by the collective clamor of multiple organizations, and from youth organizations to fisherfolk communities that had their back, that knew what the truth is. And I think that's the real power that we want to harness, and the collective action that we want to create, is that even in the face of great injustice, even in the face of lies and manipulation by powerful groups, is that with that collective clamor and with that collective action, the truth will come out, and there will be a great change that will happen. And I think I'd like to go back to why those two young women were in the communities in the first place. They were advocating for the rights of fisherfolk. There's a project that's happening in that area. It's reclamation projects, which is dumping soil into coastal communities, taking away livelihoods, taking away land, taking away the real people's lives. And that's the reason why they're there. They're there to investigate. They're there to help the community as young advocates. And yet, powerful and rich corporations don't see that. They only see what they want. They want to see profit. They want to build airports and casinos, and that's the only thing that they want. And they will do anything just to get that profit. And to connect that to climate justice and what we're doing is that what are fossil fuel corporations doing? All they want is the profit. They don't care if it's causing horrible things to people in the global south, if it's causing health problems, if it's causing pollution, if it's causing the climate crisis. And that's why how we want to answer to that is, again, the truth. We want to bring out the truth. We want to harness that power by having that collective clamor, by having that message, same as what Sela says and what everyone has said before me, is that we have to have a powerful solidarity of that we're all experiencing this, and there's a huge injustice that is happening. But even with that injustice, we can make a change by speaking out.
Thank you, Alab. I think we really should also have a big hand for the PCCB for giving us the space to build our capacity. But based on what we have been hearing, I think the capacity that we really need to build right now is for the policymakers and decision makers to build their capacity to listen and to capacity to include us all. Because already we have all the spaces and we have the opportunity to give our stories and to build our networks. But I think a common theme of one of I've been sharing this is really, I think that they should also attend a lot of more of our activities, no? Especially listen and integrate and collaborate more with the environmental and climate defenders. And, we really need to build our technical skills, our experiences, but all of this will not harness its goal if it will only land on deaf ears. So I would like to open the floor. We will, I think for the time, we'll take around 3 questions, and then just say who would you like to answer? Anyone from the panel? Yeah, so we're opening up for questions or insights could be. Any takers? Anyone? Thoughts, comments, or questions? In 3, 2. I think everyone was happy and satisfied. And of course, you can always do bilateral talks. We would love to talk to you, everyone, if you have any questions. So, for the consideration of time, I'll just give you 1 minute each, 1 to 2 minutes each, just to have your closing message. One key takeaway that we would like everyone who have attended here and those watching our webcast. I know we are up online to. What would be your key message that would like to leave to them? Gertrude?
The key message is that we must never ever give up. We must never underestimate the impact we make when we come to these global policy spaces. If we do not come to these global policy spaces, we'll not be able to provide checks and balances to the excesses of corporates. Thank you very much.
For me, for all the youth who's watching, is that you have to trust in collective action, and you have to trust that you have to be part of a bigger group. You can't do it alone. And that's why we have all these organizations and we all have these spaces to create that collectivity. That's all.
Thank you.
Ok. No, muchas gracias. Simplemente el mensaje es que debemos escuchar a la niñez, debemos escuchar a la juventud y debemos escuchar a nuestros mayores y mayores sabedoras para que ese sistema de conocimientos como pueblos indígenas podamos compartirlo y podamos transmitirlo a las siguientes generaciones, comprendiendo que seremos las que mayor tiempo daremos esta lucha, así que es fundamental ese trabajo intergeneracional con nuestros abuelos, con nuestras abuelas, en las mingas de pensamiento, como le llamamos en nuestros pueblos indígenas.
We must listen to our children, our youth, our elders. The importance, again, of highlighting this intergenerational sharing of knowledge and passing of knowledge to all the generations. And again, indigenous peoples who are the group that will be sort of fighting for climate change longest, so highlighting this need for collaboration amongst the generations.
My take home is just on one word. You have to have the passion for this. If you don't have the passion, you're losing it right from the first place. I am a trained diplomat in climate financing. I had been in that space, government space, for all these years. I resigned from government in 2017. I've already assessed the landscape for us, and I want to do it the way people power needs to see it. We need to create this success story. So I call all my kids together and my good wife, and we said, I have some savings here, but it's not for the luxury that you kids want. I will start something. Is this a dream? We want to establish a faith-based community service organization to help, to be the voice of people who cannot go into these spaces. And I'm so thankful. This is like a decade ago. I call all my kids up. 2 of them are in university and said, Dad, will you buy our cell phones? I said, hold on. We need to empower, harness and mobilize the collective action of the people. If I look back, there is no one queuing up. I have this higher calling. We must do this in Fiji so that we can create this vibration around the Pacific. Let the waves of the South Pacific Ocean see what we do, and we continue. That starts with passion. We start from nothing, absolutely no money. But I talk to you now, we are putting my feet inside the World Bank corridors. We start to receiving those little funding, small grants. And now I talk today, this morning, to the COP presidents. They said, unless, Your Excellency, when you talk about loss and damage trust fund, unless and until we have a special trust fund for the indigenous people that can carry out our aspirations for locally led social inclusion projects at whatever little baby steps away, this thing gonna work. And it resonates well with him. I said, that is an exciting aspiration. So the next 4 days with something. But then again, it starts from nothing. I managed to talk to the COP28 president this morning. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you so much, Selle. And again, the PCCB theme for this day is and focus on human rights. And as I've mentioned, our very right should be always at the center, forefront of all our actions, of all our moves to address climate change. Can I ask you for a little favor so that we will end this activity in a powerful note, powerful spirit? When I say power, can you say people? And of course, when I say people, you will say. Wow, you're really fast learners. We have built our capacity. So, where are the people? Power. Power? People. People? Power. Power. People. Thank you so much. Again, we have a lot of stories, and our stories can move actions. But unless these stories are rooted to those who are most at risk, to those who really need it, for those who all these rights that we have achieved, we fight for, should serve. Our power will be not a solid power, but a power that will lose its power eventually. But altogether, by coming together, by rooting this power to our people, we were able to build this solidarity, and we build our movement. Our efforts from the People's Rising for Climate Justice, enabled by these venues, by the PCCB, cannot end here. And it will not end here, definitely, until we fully realize that our rights should be at the center of all climate actions and all our aspirations for a safe and healthy people and planet is achieved. So again, people, power. People. Thank you so much, and I hope we'll see you again. Thank you.